Hey guys, Leslie again. Um, Jim and I just celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago, and we've been together for 27 years. And I want to do this real quick video because I've been thinking about the fact that I have been married for 26 years. There was a time in my life where I never wanted to get married at all because I didn't want to become a divorce statistic. I really thought that if I got married, I'd just get divorced. So why bother getting married? That's why we had our firstborn in our arms when we got married, because I wouldn't marry him before or after I got pregnant. I had to wait till after the baby was born for him to convince me that we needed to get married. But anyway, I started thinking about the fact that there are a lot of people out there that are really struggling in their marriage. We just talked to a couple this past weekend who they're newlyweds. I mean, they're just starting out. But I know people who've been married for as long as, Jim and I have, that are still struggling in their relationship. Um, I can sit here and tell you and look you in the eye and say that I am a happily married woman. And it's sad, but a lot of people can't say that. And that kind of bothers me because we should be happily married. Um, it's one of those things where we have to learn how to be married. We have to learn how to be moms, and we have to learn how to be dads. It's not something that just comes naturally. It's funny how when we're single, we're so selfless. We give to everybody, and we're so giving and loving and caring. And then we get married, and all of a sudden we realize how selfish we really are. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to learn. It's a hard thing to learn to live with someone when you both are bringing in your own set of luggage, your own dysfunction, your own issues, and you're trying to meld that into a relationship. It's difficult. But I was just thinking about the things that really kind of saved our marriage, because the first 7 years that we were married, we threw around the divorce word quite a bit. It got really bad around year 5. And, you know, if I hadn't made some realizations, and of course my husband did too, but I mean we both had to make some realizations. We both had to make some changes. But for me, and I'm speaking to both parties, whether you're a guy or a girl, this goes for you. I think for me, the number one key that really started to change the direction of my marriage and how I felt about marriage and moving toward being happily married was giving up control. I had to give up control. I had to learn that I could not control my husband. I couldn't make him do the things that I wanted him to do. I couldn't make him read my mind. I couldn't make him take out the trash. I couldn't make him do certain things that, would make me happy. And I think that's one of the main things that happens when we go to the altar to get married. Sometimes we have that thought in the back of our head thinking, oh, I'm going to live happily ever after. This person that I'm marrying is going to make me happy. Well, it's not that person's responsibility to make you happy. They can't make you happy. You're responsible for your own happiness. And for me to move toward being happily married, I had to learn to give up control. I had to understand that my husband was an individual with his own thoughts, his own feelings, his own desires, his own goals, his own dreams. I couldn't control him. And once I learned once I learned that, and I really settled in my heart, okay, I can't control him. There are going to be things that he's going to do that are going to make me mad. But you know what? That's going to happen in any relationship. Period. I don't care if you're married or not. It's going to happen in a relationship. People are going to make you mad because they're not always going to do what you want them to do. But you know what? It's not about them doing what I want them to do. It's about us learning to get along regardless of whether or not they're doing what we want them to do. So that was the first key for me, was to give up control and to understand that I had no right to tell my husband what to do. He was his own person. And I think the second key that was the hardest one, I mean, learning to give up control and get that settled in my mind was one thing, but doing it was another. But then I had to take that next step toward working on me. I didn't come into my marriage perfect either. I had my problems, I had my issues, and I had to focus on those things. So not only did I have to give up control of my husband and let that go, completely let it go, but I had to take on responsibility for me. I mean, if you think about it, there's certain circles in our life that we have control over. There's that one big one that we have no control over. It's huge. Everything in the world is in that big circle. You know, what other countries are doing, poverty, famine, floods, typhoons, whatever. We have no control over those things whatsoever. Those are outside of our control period. So don't even bother worrying about those. Then you have this circle of influence. And that circle is a little bit smaller. or actually probably a lot smaller, because your circle of influence is the people that you know, the people that have relationship with you, that know you well enough to trust you when you say or do something. So those are people that, yeah, they'll ask for your advice, you know, and they might come to you with questions or whatnot, and you can give them advice and you can give them guidance and direction, and they may or may not take it. Again, you don't have control over them, but you have a little influence, and sometimes they're going to take your advice. You know, my husband's in that circle. My husband is in that circle of influence. I can influence my husband. I can't control him. I can influence my children. I can't control them. Well, once they reach like 15, 16, I can't control them. They're kind of getting on their own. But anyway, that's another story for another video. And then there's this little itty bitty tiny little circle, and that's me. That's the area that I do have control over. The only thing in that circle is me. I had to understand that I had to take responsibility for that circle. And that was take responsibility for myself, take responsibility for my actions. You know, I realized that once I started taking responsibility for me and focused on me rather than focusing on my husband, things started to work out. Things started to get better. I started focusing on improving me. How can I become a better person? How can I become a better wife? How can I become a better mother? And once I started inwardly looking at these things and coming to grips with my faults, because I had plenty of them and I still do, haven't arrived, and I started working on making myself better, I was amazed at all of a sudden how much better my marriage became. Because when I became a better wife, that made my husband realize, wow, she's, you know, she's not nagging me. She's not giving me a hard time. She's not trying to control me. And it made him want to start doing things to make me happy. And he started to focus on himself. Well, what are my faults? Where can I improve? Where can I become a better husband? Where can I become a better father? Where can I become a better dad? And as we focus on ourselves and become better people in general, it's amazing how much happier our relationships get. And that's the hardest thing for me. That was the hardest thing for me to do. And I mean, it still is. It's still the hardest thing for you to look at yourself. And sometimes it's funny because we can be so critical of ourselves and we can be so demeaning. But at the same time, sometimes we have such issues, such deep issues in our life that we kind of deny them or we gloss over them or we pretend they don't exist because we don't want to deal with them. But we have to, in order to become a better person, a better wife. I have to deal with those issues that affect my ability to be a better person and to be a better wife. So again, the first key, I had to just give up control. And believe me, I still fight being a control freak. I still fight controlling things. It's just, you know, especially when it's a defense mechanism. When you come from a background of being hurt or, you know, abused or taken advantage of, it's a natural defense mechanism to want to control situations, because when you can control things, you can control whether or not you get hurt or to what degree you might get hurt. So that was a big thing for me, was to give up control. But the even bigger thing for me to learn was to start to take responsibility for me. So, you know, if you're not happily married, look at why you're not happily married. Are you fighting, and why are you fighting? You know, look at those things. When you have an argument, dissect it. Figure out what it is that you're arguing about and why you're even arguing. You know, Jim and I in the early years, we don't fight over how to raise the kids. We don't fight over money. We don't fight over, you know, big decisions on things to do that need to be done. We're very unified on that. We would fight over how to make a fire in the fireplace and who made the better one. We would fight over how to cook pork chops. We would fight over, you know, the stupidest things. And it was all about control. It was all about, because Jim and I both come from backgrounds where we kind of both had low self-esteems, and we were told we weren't worth much. So those fights that we had were fights we were trying to vie for. I'm better than you. I can do this better than you. Again, I had to give that up and realize that I needed to deal with those issues so that I could be the best person that I could be, so that I could be the best wife I could be. So again, you know, I'm not going to keep rambling on because I'm almost at 10 minutes, but I just wanted to throw that out there, and I hope that helps somebody. If it did, let me know. You know, write me a comment, you know, send me an email. My email address is available. I would love to hear from you. But I want more and more people to be happily married. You know, for me to be married for 26 years and be able to sit here and say, I truly did marry my knight in shining armor, that's for me a huge accomplishment. Coming from a place where in the early years I never even wanted to get married because I was just convinced it would end up in divorce. So it is possible, folks. It is possible to be happily married, but it takes work. And sometimes we don't want to put in the work because it hurts us to have to change. But you're not going to have a happy marriage until you make the necessary changes. Again, don't focus on the other person. The other person is responsible for them, for themselves. You are only responsible for you. So become the best husband you can be. Become the best wife you can be. And sit back and watch in amazement how that affects your spouse. And all of a sudden, they want to rise to that level that you're rising to. And you end up one day looking back and being able to say, I am a happily married person. So here's to marriage. Marriage does matter. Love you guys. Leave your comments.